Good morning. It's Thursday, everyone, and I'm here with some new faces. Bridget likes to tell me she's been on the show before as an observer. I want proof. I want her to send me proof that she's actually joined us.
You
But
got it, Mark.
okay, yeah, I want to see it. I want to see proof, and I want to see who's with us today. So as always, welcome. We know we've got people from all over in the comments we want to see. So jump in there and tell us, who are you? Where are you from? And I'm just excited. We've got one of our fantastic partners, IntelliBoard, who is going to blow your minds in the next few minutes. So get ready. I'm handing it over to Becky, Bridget, and Elizabeth to do a little mind blowing. Take it away.
No pressure. No pressure. That's quite the introduction. So here we go. Thank you, Mark, and thank you for Canvas for being such a great partner and allowing us to do this. We are excited to be here, and today we're going to talk about student engagement and on the internet. Nobody knows if you're asleep. So right now with this COVID world and online learning increasing and distance learning, we wanted to look at engagement and what is engagement and how can we measure engagement in the digital classroom. And when in the classroom, you can look at your students, you can take their cues, you can, their nonverbals to see, are they with you? Are they confused? Are they willing to help other students? And how do you get those cues in the digital classroom? And how do you know if your students are with you? How do you know if they're participating in the online classroom? So that's what we are focusing on today. And as Mark said, let us know who you are and where you're from. And also, we are IntelliBoard is data reporting and analytics visualizations for learning management systems. And we work with Canvas. We utilize the Canvas data portal and Canvas API to take that data, organize it, visualize it, and provide more value. So if you have any, Bridget's on chat. So if you have any questions or comments or want to tell us how you utilize data, we'd love to hear that from you. So today we're going to start with what we currently have with IntelliBoard and some visualizations and reports that tell you about your student engagement and participation. But then we're going to kind of give you a little sneak peek at some things that are coming this fall as we release our brand new platform, IntelliBoard Next. So we have some visualizations that will be made possible with the new platform. And then lastly, Elizabeth is going to tell us or talk with us about some of the research that she's been doing on visualizations and kind of new ways to measure, to view participation. And she's literally going to Elizabeth?
Put a face on the data.
I didn't want to steal her line because she came up with it. All right, so first of all, in IntelliBoard, we take the data and our goal is to guide the instruction or give you guidance through our visualizations. And I mentioned our new platform, IntelliBoard Next. And what we really want to do is look at all of the reporting and analytics and move it up this chart, move it up this pyramid. So if you look at the DIKW chart, it's data, information, knowledge, and wisdom. And today, since we are focusing on engagement and participation, we really want to take a look at Canvas's data point participation. We think it's a great data point. And actually in the comments, if you utilize that participation data point, let us know how you use it. So Canvas provides a very clear definition of what that participation data point is. And it's on the screen if you want to read along with me. So it requires the students to do something. It requires active engagement, not just optional engagement, okay? Not just sitting there logging in, accessing the course, opening YouTube or something else, watching a movie. It requires the student to actually participate and do something. So here's the list of data point or what makes that data point for participation. So an announcement, you post or comment on an announcement, or you submit an assignment, you edit a collaborative document, you join a web conference or post a new comment to a discussion, create a page, submit a quiz or start a quiz. So participation really it's not just passive, it's not just logging in, it really requires activity. So if you look at the chart with IntelliBoard, data would just be, that raw, that data, that log entry, okay? And then with IntelliBoard, where we organize it and summarize it and visualize it, that really moves it up to information, right? But that's not good enough. We want to take it up to knowledge and wisdom. We want to guide you to make instructional decisions, improvements. We want we want to send learner recommendations based on their behaviors that really move the data up to wisdom. And so looking at participation, just like a list of total participations, that could be one level, right? But then when you start looking at how that compares to past behavior. So was it a student who participated actively and then all of a sudden dropped off? Okay, that guidance or that visualization moves it up the chart to where it provides you knowledge. And then making some comparisons and looking at trends and predictive analytics based on the participation, that really moves it up to wisdom. And that is our goal. But some of the stuff that we have right now with IntelliBoard, one of our favorite reports, is called Learner Success and Progress. And this report looks at that participation data point, but organizes it in a way that kind of moves it up that chart. Okay, so looking at here, we have the total page views, total participations, time spent. But then two columns I want to look at, last participation and last access date. Okay, so that takes that participation data, but then moves it up the chart to where it provides you information about access versus participation. Access versus participation. Are your students just logging in? What is attendance? What is attendance and how is attendance measured? Is it just login data? Is it time spent? Or does it require participation? So looking at these 2 points together, you can measure if there's an issue of a student logging in and just accessing the course, but then not participating. So that could be an issue that you see.
Hey, Becky. Mm-hmm. As you've probably seen on these, I love jumping in awkwardly because it's kind of my specialty. And Amy here is asking, and you're covering this right now, so I want to make sure we acknowledge her. What's the most important data set to you? How do you currently use data to inform your educational priorities? My guess is that it depends where you're teaching, what your focus area is, but how would you answer that question? What's the most important data set to you?
Okay, and have others, if you can answer this question on the chat, send that out too. What is the most important data set for you? Because that would be extremely valuable for us to know at IntelliBoard. Well, right now, engagement. Engagement is huge. Are my students asleep? On the internet, nobody knows if you're asleep, right? So my children, I've watched them. They have their teacher streaming live instruction as they look at their phone. How do you measure engagement? And this report is one of my favorites because you can, I don't know if you all can see, but it has actually a filter on it. So you can filter down to a specific grade range. You could look at one student across all of his or her courses, or you can look at one course, all the students in a course. You could look at an entire sub-account. And, for this one, just at risk, maybe identifying some at-risk behaviors prior to it becoming a problem. And participation is one of those. And Elizabeth is going to go into, in a little bit, some correlations between participation and achievement or completion of a course. And so this report would be one that I would want to schedule. So you can say, I want to know anyone in this Canvas sub-account who has below a 70, and I want this every week. Okay, so that's one measure of at-risk behavior is potentially the grade, but then you could go further and dig into the access and the participation. And then this also breaks it apart based on the different types of activities in the course. And that really gives you knowledge of where they're spending their time, maybe different activities that students prefer over other ones. And that brings up, we have a couple other visualizations. So this next visualization is just, when are your learners logging in? You can drill down into a course, make some comparisons between courses. When are my students accessing my content? But then we have a lot of other visualizations. And then, like I said, with IntelliBoard Next, you can actually start to create your own visualizations. But one of my favorite ones is the top left, page views by tool. So as an instructor, I might think that I make the best instructional videos or the best PowerPoints ever. And my students are so lucky to have these PowerPoints because it just prepares them so well for this quiz. But then, are they actually viewing my videos? Are they clicking on those links? Are they accessing those resources to prepare them for the quiz or to prepare them for whatever I deem as success in that class? And if they aren't successful, then let's look at where they spent their time. And then looking back at this data point of participation, is there something I can do to these resources that I think are so awesome to require that active participation?
Or encourage.
Them. Yeah, to encourage that participation. Yep. All right. Any questions or anything so far going?
You're doing great. Keep it up.
All right. So right now, I'm actually going to pass it to Elizabeth to show you some of the visualizations that will be possible with the new IntelliBoard Next.
Thanks, Becky. So as Becky said earlier, IntelliBoard Next is going to offer you the ability to create your own reports and your own visualizations. What I've done here is just prepare a couple of examples using data from a real course that show you how powerful this can be. And this is going to be available to Canvas users later this fall. So for start, let's take a look at participations per week. Now, this was actually a 12-week course, and I have the data from the whole course, but you can imagine being here at week 5 or 6 and taking a look at how people have participated so far and how you want to encourage them to participate moving forward. So we start from before the term, we take a look at the week 1 participation, and we're seeing some regular waves here. These center on activities where participation was required, like completing a quiz or submitting an assignment. But we also see that later on in the course, activity trails down even for the learners who were really engaged earlier. So there aren't very many activities that encourage participation later on in the course. And that's something as an instructor that I might want to look at and say, how can I get more out of those last weeks of the course? Or perhaps I'm going to acknowledge that it's almost summertime and there's just no way to pull them back in. But if I want to try to get my learners really engaged in those last weeks, this shows the points at which I can try to do that and have a little bit more of an effect.
Here, Elizabeth, John asked a good question. So you were just now showing that the time of, if you have a lot of these activities early on in the course and then it drops off, is it the students dropping off participation, or is it a lack of activities that encourage participation? So he was asking, thanks, Mark, just threw his question up.
Yeah, so confirming access and engagement proximal to a due date. That's a really good question and something that I've been looking at in my own research, looking for a correlation between first access before due date and success in an individual activity. And that's the kind of thing that you would be able to construct with the new tools that we're building. And what we're hoping to have is kind of an exchange where those of you who have created really powerful reports and visualizations will be able to share them with each other as well. So now that we're opening up IntelliBoard to make it possible for you to generate all kinds of novel and useful displays and reports, we also want to make it possible for you to share them. So that's one of the things, that kind of information about access before due date, I think we're going to see that that's fairly powerful. We all know the student, I was one, who starts the assignment the night before it's due and pulls an all-nighter. Some students actually do pretty well in that kind of a mode, but mostly we don't, even those of us who think that we can get away with that. So encouraging learners to participate a little bit earlier is a really great idea. Now, I'm going to tease a little bit. Becky, can I tease a little bit?
Sure.
We are looking at a system, not this fall, but a little bit later, that will actually look for those kinds of signals and check to see which of those signals are most predictive for your learners. and start to offer you some predictions of risk or anything else that you're interested in predicting based on how your previous learners have actually behaved. So I don't have a screenshot for you today.
Right.
Perhaps we'll be invited back again.
And we can talk with John and get John's feedback for what he's looking for, because that's immediately what I thought of too, Elizabeth, was the learner recommendations.
Yeah.
And, the goal is to say, you didn't spend much time here prior to this assessment. Next time, spend more time on these assessments, or really linking, or not assessments, resources. But so linking the resources to the assessment and the learner recommendations based on their time spent.
Yep, that's another feature that we are looking at. Now that would require a little bit of organization on the part of the instructor to link together the resources that relate to a particular activity, a graded activity. But I am looking at some possible AI ways to make that a little bit easier as well. We have lots of exciting things happening here at IntelliBoard going forward. So, stay tuned. In the meantime, John, reach out to us or post your information and we will reach out to you with some of the functionality that we have coming up. So one of the things that you could do with that information, the information about how soon did the instructor access an assignment before it was due, is look for a correlation. This is a different correlation that I'm showing here. This is a correlation between the number of participations across the whole course and the student's final grade. This is the kind of visualization that you will be able to prepare with IntelliBoard Next. And in this case, we are seeing a very strong correlation. This is from that same course with 20 students, but I have to tell you, every data set I have ever looked at shows the same thing, regardless of LMS, regardless of subject. When the students participate more, they do better in the course. They're more likely to complete the course, to still be active at the end. They're more likely to get a passing grade or an acceptable grade, B or better. They're more likely to be satisfied with the course if it was optional. So there are just a lot of reasons to encourage participation. That means including enough opportunities for participation in your courses. And we're preparing some visualizations that will help you see that as well. So this is great. We're looking at dots on a screen and tables and pretty curved lines, and this is all pretty abstract. So these are things that will be available. But now I want to talk about what could be available. And what I'm going to show you are some things that are technically possible. We have all of the tools available to do something like this, but we want to know if you're interested. We want to know if this will be valuable to you. So let's take a look at some previous research. This is not my research. I've been reviewing the field. The idea of representing data as faces or facial expressions goes back to 1973 when it first became easy to get computers to draw pictures. And a guy, Herman Chernoff, came up with the idea of encoding data as features on faces. Now, he was encoding geological survey data. His notion was humans are so good at recognizing faces and facial characteristics that they would be able to see similarities across the data, even though the facial characteristics had nothing to do with the kind of data being represented. So this was a way of illustrating multivariate data and looking for patterns. Whether this is really effective for something like geological survey data has been debated. But there are some very powerful ideas here. And moving forward, we come to Perry and Donath, 2004. They made an anthropomorphic visualization of learners in discussion boards and forums and showed the size of the body representing the number of posts that the learners had made, and then darkening the posts and the features to show that the learner had engaged more than once in a thread, making the faces based on something called sentiment analysis, which you may have heard of on Facebook or Twitter, the idea of scanning a whole discussion and looking for the tone, whether people have a positive or negative tone, whether they're happy or angry, based on the kinds of words that they use. So this is all well-established kinds of research that's been done. These figures are a little cartoonish. Would learners feel comfortable with the idea that they get bigger and rounder the more they post? Maybe not, but it's an interesting idea. It's creative. It's a little more intuitive, a little easier to read, a little friendlier. We also want
Hey, Elizabeth.
Yeah.
Elizabeth, I have to interrupt because never in the history of this show has anyone used the word anthropomorphic. And so I feel like that's almost slow clap worthy, everyone.
Yeah.
I just dropped the link in there. Wow, Elizabeth, I feel like you took us to new levels, and we want to thank the IntelliBoard brand and tell everyone, go check them out. Okay, I'm done. Elizabeth, take it away.
Guys, I apologize for my $10 vocabulary. I read research all the time, and these words just seep in.
I was going to say, she is our learning and development analyst, but I will also admit that if I were in a course where I got fatter, the more participation, I would not participate. I would try to lose a few pounds. I'm not sure that would motivate me.
Yeah, I feel like this is kind of the COVID version of IntelliBoard is what it's showing us.
Well, okay, there's maybe an argument for a couch potato correlation, but we're not going there. We're talking about learning here. Learning. Okay. Another area of visualizations that has really been intriguing and powerful is the idea of a sociogram, showing a social network. And this is the idea. Dietrichson did a really interesting study that published in 2013, where he looked at the connections between learners in a discussion board and not just did they send a post or a message, did they reply to a message, but how often did they do it? Or how many words did they use? Or in this case, an actual semantic analysis saying, were they words that really contributed to a conversation, or were they, ooh, that's cool, and hey, look at this thing my cat did today? So, not that it's bad to talk about our pets. It's very important to humanize our conversations online, but does that have as much semantic weight in a discussion about statistics or literature or what have you? So with this kind of thing in the background, we started to think about more visualizations that we could provide. So this is a dashboard designed at Keele University in Staffordshire. And again, I was not involved in this research, but I saw a presentation about this a couple of years ago at a learning analytics conference, and it really grabbed my attention for a couple of reasons. One, the students were involved in designing it. So this was meant to provide a dashboard for students designed by students. So they get to design their own character, their own representation, and then they pick the motivators that are important to them. Two of them here are money and family. And then as the course goes along, they see a little snapshot picture that shows the kind of future that they might expect based on their current performance in the course or in a whole program. So here we've got, this kid is, got a sign hanging on him that says intern in a broken down house, kind of a small car, and his opportunities are just falling away from him. Whereas this young woman has a text message, a mobile device with lots of text messages coming in and lots of mastery in the form of books, and has this kind of international vibe going on in the background, and a fancy car. So the idea here was, again, this was a presentation for students, but there are some powerful, interesting ideas here.
Elizabeth, you're getting a lot of love. You're getting some love, Elizabeth, here about people love this idea. And there's a really great question and awesome application here from John. And he used your word. So I think we had to stop and shout him out a little bit. He wanted to know, could the anthropomorphic actually be incorporated into a context where an accumulation of smiles, actually, those results be, given into a digital badge of proficiency, actually translate that, which I think is an awesome, awesome idea.
John, I am so glad you asked. I am so glad you asked that question. I don't have anything here directly about creating badges, but yes, I think that's a brilliant idea. And on the way to that, how do we represent student attitudes and student connections?
It makes me think of emojis.
With technology available today, So yes, we could do sentiment analysis and show some emojis. Or we could use emojis in sentiment analysis, which is another area I'm very interested in.
Elizabeth, before you go on, that last one, this just hit me, and maybe some other parents out there filming. The last slide, I think of a certain video game that I probably shouldn't say out loud because then you probably will judge me as a parent. But, where my child racks up, like he has earned, I think he's done some illegal behavior, but earned all these cars and helicopters, and he has this life in his video games of all of these things that he's accumulated. And I really think he could use a wake-up call. I'm seeing him logging in and all of his airplanes and stuff, but then I've seen his recent online behavior. Our district has Canvas, and I'm pretty sure if he had this and logged in, he would be the intern driving the little car. So it could be I could see it as a motivator. It could give a child who thinks that he's earned all these cars a little wake-up call. So
just so everyone's clear, Becky is talking about Farmville. Farmville is the one that she's talking about.
And because I like to counterbalance discussions about video games and their value, I have posted a note about a game called Sky by that game company, which is a pro-social online game where you are rewarded for making friends, for helping people, and it's not possible to attack anybody in the game. And I just really like the game. It's very nice. It's got very soothing music. I recommend it for parents as well as kids. If you're tired of doom scrolling online all day and you want to just do something that makes you feel good, Sky is the game for you. I have disclosure, I have no financial relationship whatsoever with Sky or that game company. Okay. Oh, and you can make your own representation of yourself with a twist, which I'm going to get to in a couple of minutes. So, I think showing some kind of representation to learners that they can affect can be powerful, or it could be demotivating. So we need to think about that. So again, as I said, we want to look at what we could do with technology that we have available today. And this is an open source system called Avatars with 3 A's at the end. And you can play around with it at getavatars.com. And this is a system that lets you design your own avatar using a number of features that include things like skin tone, hair color and style, clothing, glasses, different things like that. And because it's open source, we can adapt it and make it even more flexible so that learners can really decide how they want to represent themselves in an online space. You can see some of the huge variety that's already available over here. Just all kinds of things that are available for people to choose to personalize their own online representation. And then we can take those representations, and since they are driven by data, we can do things like adjust them. So here's an idea to show, John, this is to you, to show the level of recent engagement and participation by altering the expression of the avatar. So we can go from really active and engaged to kind of uncertain or distracted to, on the internet, we know you're asleep. Or going back to Dietrichson's social network graphs, we can use sentiment analysis to try to get a sense of how people are feeling about their learning and combine it with the connections between people. So here we're seeing this central person is probably the instructor, has direct connections with a bunch of different participants, but not with these two. And this student is all alone. So by looking at this, one, the teacher can say, I need to reach out to this student, but also they could say, you know, this student, Mia, let's say, is really engaged, really social, has connections with lots of people. Maybe I can ask her to reach out to him and draw him into the community.
Elizabeth, you have to use John's name.
What's that?
You have to use John because he's super connected and super, he loves this idea. So you have to use John's name.
John is the instructor in this situation, clearly. Connected to everybody. Okay, so we could do this with technology today. The question is, are you interested? Would it be valuable? Is this the kind of thing that you think could help your learners and your instructors in online learning with the situation that we're all in right now? Now, there are some caveats, and I'm going to open this up to the floor. Do we want to force learners to out themselves in terms of gender, ethnicity, age? Are those things that they have to provide? Or could we provide non-human, more fanciful representations that can still be used in the same way to provide an identity, an image, and to adjust the facial expressions based on sentiment or activity? This is an example of another video game. This is Wii Fit and the Plaza when you first log in. I used to play this game, and I'm afraid to turn it on and log in now because I know I'd see my figure, my me figure, over on the side, slumped over, asleep. So do I really want to do that? So that's something to consider. Are we worried about demotivating learners if we show them these representations? Are we worried about prejudicing instructors if we show them these representations? And then, you know, this is a great idea, but what if you have a calculus course with 200 students? You're probably not going to be able to make much use of this kind of representation, but maybe a representation like this could be done. And this is actually a display that we could generate with IntelliBoard Next coming this fall. This is a supported graph. In fact, I use the same tools that we already have to generate this graph. I want to throw it open to the floor at this point. What are you all thinking about? What would be useful? What are you worried about? What would you like us to consider?
You know what I love about it, Elizabeth? I love the idea that if I was an online instructor, and I have been in the past, especially for young ones, it's a quick, great visualization of what my class kind of looks like, a snapshot in which I could then go, you know, make sure I come around and touch on those kids who really need it, especially in this fast-paced world where you have hybrid situations, you have kids in class and kids online. And this is a really great way, I think, to take the temperature of the room in a way and be able to make sure you get to the people that you need to get to. You know, you need to get to those learners. And then, you know, later on when you have more time, you can look at the data, but this is a great way for you to enter your classroom and get a climate when you're not in the classroom, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. And you can also see, you know, if you didn't have time or you have not had luck reaching out to the student here, if Mia reaches out to this student and draws him in, you know that she's, you know, fully engaged in the class and she's doing really well cognitively as well. That would be good enough. You'd be able to see who's connected with somebody. They don't necessarily need to be talking to the teacher if they're talking to their peers and their peers are well informed and helpful.
And that's what one of our viewers is saying. David is saying the same, that this is like real life, you know, formative time, and that you can give check-ins in real life. And that is really important when the student's not sitting in front of you, raising their hand, and, you know, you can see them. This is a great way. I agree, David, that it's in real time and it's a really helpful tool.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, I love the data-driven avatars. I love that idea, but even take that away and just have little circles with initials on it. Being able to visualize the connections between your discussions. So if I heavily utilize discussions, being able to see the graph and quickly notice the difference between these two discussions. So I had two discussions that I thought were you know, equal and great, but then I see that this one, the students only connected with me. They only responded to me. Whereas with this graph, they responded to each other and their lines were so much thicker. You know, that's really where it takes the pyramid up to providing wisdom, because then I can look and say, that taught me something I didn't know. I didn't know. I thought I made two discussions that were equal. But when I see these visualizations, I can see this one, you know, they really participated in it. What's the difference and how can that impact discussions that I create in the future?
I think this is an interesting point, Becky, Elizabeth, and Bridget, from our favorite viewer of the day, John, who says, you know, there's some people on the interwebs who would have some privacy concerns. You know, I've gotten to deal with that a fair amount. And John here says, I stress that gender, race, and orientation does not matter to the correctness or completeness of a project. Non-humanized views would be more valuable to my area. So for those who in the background may be saying, well, could this be an issue, a privacy issue? It would depend on how you set it up, how you support it. Of course, IntelliBoard would never do anything that would put them in some kind of privacy matter. But there's so much just brilliant data that can help you help your students if you use it the right way.
Right. Somehow we want to thread the needle here between giving people a way to represent themselves as individuals and their emotions, their affect online, without forcing people to expose things that have nothing to do with the course. Yep. Now, if the students have been together some of the time in live classrooms, like this is a hybrid, or the students have been together for a few weeks, but there's been a COVID incident, everybody has to go home for a couple of weeks, using a representation that's realistic might be appropriate in that kind of a context. We're thinking more that people should be able to choose, and it should be something that can be adapted to the community. So that is absolutely a great point.
Speaking of people being able to choose, David makes a good point too, that it would be nice if there was a built-in assessment tool, like students can view their participation and self-assess their own participation and, speak to what they think about their participation, in contrast or in comparison to what the data is actually saying. So I think that's a really great point.
Allowing learners to view and to correct data about themselves is really key to ethical analytics. That's just something that we have to do, whether we're just showing data or making predictions with data especially. And there is an awful lot of research right now about existing predictive systems, machine learning systems, artificial intelligence systems that embody biases that were in pre-existing systems. So here we think we're being so fair and impartial, and we've developed a system that makes a decision about bank loans or college admissions based on data that is biased from the past. Becky, what are you sharing here?
Yes, I'm sharing there's conversation about panda and their favorite panda, and can we use a panda to represent? So I was just showing my favorite panda.
Well, that does make sense for Canvas customers now, doesn't it?
Lorraine, she just one-upped you. I mean, she literally pulled a panda up and was like,
I did.
Lorraine, look, check this out.
I did.
I should have had it visible. I don't have a panda handy, but I do have crocheted critters that I make that could conceivably become part of a display. So yeah, lots of possibilities and variations that the institution, the instructor, the whole class as a group can decide these are how we're going to represent ourselves in these online conversations. So that's good. As far as learners self-evaluating, do you want that to be an IntelliBoard feature or a Canvas feature? I can see it going either way. Mm-hmm. We at IntelliBoard only have the opportunity to present it to you as an IntelliBoard feature. But, Mark, do you want to say anything about the value of something like that in Canvas itself?
It's an excellent, excellent question, Elizabeth. Assessment is something that matters a lot to us. Some of you will remember the acquisition that we made a little over a year ago of Mastery Connect. Assessment is a big deal. So as far as what we're developing and doing from an assessment standpoint in the future, TBD on all of that, but we sure love having great partners like IntelliBoard that help us figure things out.
And it could be the kind of thing where you want to partner with us because it's in our wheelhouse and we can help make your existing platform great without adding a lot of complexity that may be considered somewhat optional for many of your other clients. So, yeah.
Love that.
Other comments, suggestions? What are people thinking about out there?
People are loving this. I mean, we have a group on here that is just eating this stuff up. If there are questions, everybody, I've dropped it in the comments a whole bunch. You'll see clear back at the very beginning. I'll pop them up here on the screen as well. Sorry, Becky, Elizabeth, and Bridget, but you have now been shared on the internet. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to them. That IntelliBoard.net is a great place to go and get some more information. These guys are doing just some incredible work, incredible stuff for the Canvas community, and we are super, super grateful. So go check them out. Talk to your CSM if you want more information, but more importantly, go to their website and they can get a hold of you to help you understand what's best for you coming up. Becky, why don't you wrap this whole thing up for us? Put a nice, pretty bow on it.
All right. Well, again, just thank you all for the opportunity. We really value this partnership and appreciate the opportunity to speak with everybody. And, you know, what is most important to us at IntelliBoard is listening to you, hearing your feedback, hearing your pain points, knowing what data is most valuable and important to you, and then us developing our product based on your feedback and the direction that you want to go. Because what we want to do is pull the data together and visualize it and deliver it to you so you can make instructional decisions, institutional decisions, and we can have an impact, a data-driven impact on teaching and learning.
Love it. Data-driven impacts. IntelliBoard is definitely helping customers do that. We're
with
back
a human
again tomorrow
face.
morning.
Yeah.
With a human face and a few cute pandas, if you know what I'm saying. Tomorrow morning, we're back 10:30 a.m. talking about some resources for students, Canvas-related resources for students. So join us tomorrow morning, 10:30 a.m. Mountain. We will see you then. Thanks, IntelliBoard team.
Thank you.